All right, so let's dive in. The de minimis exemption sounds fancy, but it's pretty straightforward once you get it. I mean, this was basically a rule that said if you ordered something from overseas and it cost less than $800, it skipped the whole tariff hassle. No extra fees, no delays, just straight to your doorstep.
Right, and that exemption wasn't just about convenience. It was a lifeline for platforms like Shein and Temu, those cheap e-commerce giants everyone seems to binge shop on these days. They built their entire business models around it.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. It's gone now. It disappeared faster than, well, one of my good cameras during a protest in Hong Kong. And trust me, protests over there aren't just about throwing bottles and chanting. It's chaos, it's tension, and it's full of layers, kind of like this whole trade thing. Anyway, back then I remember snapping photos of people clutching phones, bags, all these imported goods that screamed, "We can connect with the world."
That's a powerful image, and it speaks to why this exemption mattered. It wasn't just about trade, it was about accessibility. But when you look deeper, you start noticing the cracks in the foundation. Companies like Shein were essentially bypassing tariffs, while local retailers, stores like Walmart and JCPenney, had to absorb those costs.
Yeah, and it's funny because on the surface it felt like the consumers were winning. Cheap clothes, same day shipping. But like, isn't this a case of short wins messing up long games? Those tariffs are kind of, I hate to say it, necessary. They're there to balance the scales, right?
Exactly. Tariffs aren't just arbitrary fees. They're there to protect economic interests, to level the playing field, especially when foreign players can undercut domestic competition. The de minimis rule, as beneficial as it was for consumers, came with trade-offs. It undermined US businesses that couldn't compete on price alone or function at lower margins. And that's the tension policymakers face, encouraging free flow while protecting local economies.
Okay, fair. But I don't know, it's disorienting. How do you take something that became so normal, like scrolling through Temu at midnight just to grab some random $20 gadget, and then just say, nope, not anymore. People are going to notice this shift big time.
Oh, they already are. But Nikki, that's the fascinating part. We're watching this massive pendulum swing. Policies like these force us to reckon with larger trade-offs like accessibility versus sustainability or global competition versus domestic resilience. And ultimately, it's a question of who ends up shouldering the cost.
Yeah, and here's where it gets real. That $10 dress, it's not going to be $10 anymore. And what's that going to do to how we shop or even where we shop? All right, so here's the fallout we were just talking about, those $5 phone cases or the trendy $15 tops. Yeah, not anymore. Thanks to tariffs, you're looking at a 15 to 25% price hike. And that's just the start. There could be other sneaky fees lurking in there too. Suddenly, bargain shopping starts to feel a little less bargainy, doesn't it?
That's right. Tariffs, customs duties, it all adds up. And the thing is, these aren't just a minor inconvenience. They're reshaping how consumers think about purchasing. When the exemption was in place, the cost savings and convenience were taken for granted. Now, we're likely to see a sharp reevaluation of buying habits.
Yeah, exactly. People might start thinking twice before clicking that buy button. Like, is it worth waiting weeks for something that's not as cheap as it used to be? And speaking of waiting, that's another thing. Customs, longer lines, slower transfers.
Right. Whenever customs procedures tighten, there's an inevitable bottleneck. Packages that used to flow smoothly now face additional scrutiny. It's especially challenging for low-cost platforms used to a quick turnaround. If deliveries slow down, it could erode, one of their key value propositions: fast, easy, and cheap.
And let's be honest, nobody's got the patience to wait 2 weeks for like a $10 gadget anymore.
And that's precisely the potential fallout, a shift from almost impulsive micro shopping to a more measured, deliberate consumer mindset. You don't just toss 5 items into your cart because they're so cheap they don't count. You start weighing needs versus wants much more consciously.
I don't know. It almost feels like the universe forcing us to think smarter, not just about spending, but even broader, like environmental impact, supply chains, all those big picture things, because this hits close to home for people real fast when favorite items aren't reachable anymore, or worse, just disappear.
Absolutely. And there's a broader historical context to explore here. When we've seen trade policy shifts in the past, such as adjustments to steel tariffs or agricultural subsidies, consumer behavior didn't just evolve, it kicked off ripple effects for industries. Entire markets pivoted, and businesses, whether domestic or international, had to adapt swiftly just to stay relevant.
Okay, but flip side, that's scary, right? It's like you're standing in this current trying to change course while dodging debris. You kind of wonder who feels it first. Is it small businesses or does it trickle down to us, the consumers?
Invariably, the weight is distributed unevenly. But for consumers, these changes serve as a wake-up call. Policies like this confront us with broader questions. Do you chase convenience and low cost at all costs, or do you pause to consider the local economies and supply chains that bear the hidden cost of cheap imports?
Yeah, I get that. But man, the practicality, I mean, are enough people really going to pause and think that hard about where their pajamas come from? Or are they just going to look at the higher price tag and go, no way? And what's next if platforms like, I don't know, Temu or Shein can't keep up? Do they just vanish? You know, if platforms like Temu or Shein struggle to keep up, here's where domestic retailers like Walmart or JCPenney might actually come out ahead.
That's right. With their foreign competitors now playing on a level tariff field, these retailers have the chance to strengthen their foothold. Competitive pricing becomes far more attainable for them, especially when foreign platforms can't undercut margins the same way.
Yeah, and this reminds me of something I saw in Vietnam, actually. There was this tiny hardware store that thrived when big international chains struggled with supply chain drama, like the locals rallied, you know? Circling back to the familiar, supporting what's close to home. It's a vibe I think we might see more of here. Maybe Walmart becomes the underdog's hero. Weird thought, right?
Not as strange as it seems. In times of transition, local businesses often seize opportunities to innovate or reinforce community loyalty. Walmart, for instance, benefits from deeply integrated supply chains and long-standing consumer trust. But this isn't just about nostalgia, it's strategy. They excel in logistics, scalability, and can absorb shifts more effectively than newer players scrambling to adapt.
True, kind of playing the long game while others are struggling with the short one. But this does make me wonder how much of this change is going to stick around. Like, is this the start of some big pivot for where Americans shop?
That's the question, isn't it? The landscape is shifting, and with it comes both challenges and opportunities. E-commerce platforms relying on fast, cheap imports might struggle, but it's not an end game. Adaptation is key, and history shows us that industries recalibrate with time. This might be the beginning of a broader reevaluation of what we value in trade and consumption.
Yeah, but for real, wouldn't it just be wild if this was the push that brought people back to, I don't know, wandering through the aisles at their local Walmart instead of doom scrolling on some app?
It could happen when convenience is no longer the sole factor driving shopping decisions. People often rediscover the advantages of local and tangible experiences. That's the irony of progress. Sometimes it circles right back to the basics.
It's funny, isn't it? Change comes at you fast, but in the end, all it really does is make you look at the big picture, trade-offs, costs, what we value. It kind of boils down to figuring out what kind of future we want to build.
Well said, Nikki. And with that, I think we've covered the full story. A lot to think about, both for us and our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's all for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. And hey, don't hoard too many $10 gadgets while you can. Just saying.
Wise words as always. Until next time, stay curious.